if you think that silk or cotton are fabrics, it's not that you're wrong, it's just that you're not really right. My name is Alex. On this channel I talk about all things sewing and garment construction, and today we're going to talk about everything you need to know about fabric so that you don't sound stupid when buying clothing, buying material for sewing, or even just talking to fashion people. I was at a fabric store in Paris recently, Marché Saint-Pierre, so I will include some photos and videos of that as well. Alright, point number one. Fabric has two parts: the fiber and the construction. This is why silk is not a fabric. Silk is a fiber. It comes from silkworms. Anyway, if you go to a fabric store and ask for silk, they're gonna be like, silk what? What kind? As an example, here you have a silk satin. That's what a lot of people mean when they say they're looking for silk. It's very smooth and vibrant, drapes beautifully, and has a sheen to it. Whereas here you have a silk organza. The organza has a crunchier texture, it's semi-sheer, and it holds its shape more than satin. They are both made out of 100% silk, so how are they so different from each other? It's because of the construction. So that brings us to point number two. There are three general categories of fabric construction: wovens, knits, and the broad category of non-wovens. Wovens are made by weaving warp threads, so that's the up and down threads, and weft, right to left, threads together. And as you can see from this diagram from fashion brand Levana, there are different types of weaves. These ones are kind of the big three, but there are other ones as well. But let's talk about the satin weave. Satin is really smooth and has a glossy look to it, right? That's due to the fact that the threads, which are long filaments like silk or synthetic fibers, which we'll talk about in a second, don't weave under every single cross thread. In this diagram from Levana, we see that the warp thread, so that's the white one, floats over several weft threads before going under one. That's what makes satin so glossy. Let's go back to our organza. This one is a plain weave, which means that every warp thread goes under every weft thread, which means that it isn't as shiny as satin. In addition, it is woven very loosely. The threads are not close together, which makes it sheer. I think maybe the threads are also treated with like acid or something before they get woven, which gives it that crunchiness. Anyway, as you can see, there is a lot of variety within wovens. However, qualities that are common to all wovens include: they typically do not stretch unless there is elastane or spandex as part of the fiber content, but on their own, they typically don't have any stretch, and if they do, it's very, very little. They will unravel at the edges, so if you're sewing with them, you need to figure out how you're going to finish your seams. Alright, next up is knits. Most of the clothing we wear every day is made from knit fabrics. They are made by big knitting machines. It's not you or somebody's grandma with your knitting needles making the fabric. No, it's big machines. Some common types of knit fabrics include jersey, sweater fleece, rib knit, French terry. The main advantages of knits are that they stretch. The amount of stretch depends on the type of knit and the fiber content. We'll talk more about fiber content in a second. I'm not going to go into the types of knits, but if you really want to be a geek about knits, I'll link a video below. But anyway, yes, knit fabrics stretch, and that's why so much of our everyday wear, including activewear, pajamas, loungewear, t-shirts, etc., are made from knit fabrics. Whereas more formal clothing, like dress pants, suit jackets, gowns, etc., are often made from wovens. Okay, lastly, we have the category of non-wovens, which encompasses basically any fabric that's not a woven or a knit. This includes animal hides like leather or fur, felt, which is basically fibers that get heated and smushed together, and the stuff they make medical masks out of, which I'm not sure if that's like a type of felting or some other technique like chemically bonded fibers or something that I'm not familiar with. Okay, so we talked about how fabrics have two parts, the fiber and the construction. We talked about the different types of construction. Now for point number three, we're going to circle back to the fiber part. So that's the raw materials, be it silk, cotton, polyester, or whatever, that get knit or woven or otherwise turned into fabric. There are three broad categories of fibers: natural fibers, semi-synthetic, otherwise known as artificial fibers, and synthetic fibers. Natural fibers come from a plant or animal, including cotton, wool, silk, and linen. There is not any kind of chemical transformation that goes into making them. Natural fibers have a lot of great properties, and of course these properties vary depending on the type of fabric, but generally natural fibers are pretty much all known for their breathability. Now there are semi-synthetic fibers, which come from a natural living origin, typically plant plants, but the fiber directly from the plant is not suitable for turning into textiles. So they undergo a process in a lab that chemically alters the fiber. When this is done to cellulosic fibers, which is pretty much the case all the time, the resulting fabric is called rayon. For the record, viscose is a type of rayon. Bamboo is a very common plant that is used to make rayon and/or viscose. A lot of people think bamboo is a natural fiber. It's not, it's semi-synthetic. Now, a lot of people ask me whether semi-synthetic fabrics like viscose or other rayons are sustainable. The answer is usually not. However, if the plant material was sourced from sustainably managed forest and the chemicals are used in a closed loop system where they don't get wasted or released into the environment, then that's probably pretty sustainable. However, most rayon and viscose are not made under those conditions. Lastly, we have synthetic fibers. These do not come from living things. They are made in a lab, often from petroleum, as is the case with polyester and nylon, and are often made with other substances as well. They are generally cheap to manufacture and can be made to imitate natural fibers in an often fairly convincing manner, and they often have additional properties like durability or water resistance that natural fibers might not have or might not have as much of. They typically don't breathe as well as natural fibers, so you may find them hotter to wear, and they're not biodegradable. Let's go back to our satin example again. Here's the silk satin. As we discussed before, it is very soft and has nice luster. Given that satin is the weave, you can make satin from other fibers, including synthetics. Here is a polyester satin, for instance. As you can see, they look quite similar. However, the polyester satin has what I would describe as more of a cheaper shine compared to the silk, which has more of a luster. The polyester satin also feels less soft than the silk satin. There is a lot more that I could talk about when it comes to fabrics, including staple fibers versus filaments, properties of different kinds of fabrics, grain lines, etc. But this should hopefully be enough to get you started. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.